Hello, this is Audrey welcoming you to the 1863rd edition of Enfield Talking newspaper, and the date line is the 12th of July 2012. And the readers this week are Malcolm, Elizabeth and myself, with Dave on the controls. The items that we will be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette, the Enfield Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and they are their copyright. The local stories include a bitter battle for war veterans, our children are the country's fattest, cricket festival fire. And so now, the special news items this week are just a reminder about the drop-in centre on Thursday for Enfield Vision at Park Avenue from 10:30 to 12:30. So do try and get along to that one. And now over to Malcolm for the first item of news.
Retired servicemen are devastated by plans to close the Royal British Legion Club at the end of the month, after nearly 100 years in the area. The club in Holtwhite's Hill, Enfield, is being forced to close its doors by the Royal British Legion on Saturday, July the 28th, after it incurred debts of more than £8,300. Club chairman Chris Pizzala, 50, broke the news to its 400 members last week, many of whom visit the club every day. He said, "These people have fought, and I am not going without a fight. It's a massive loss to the community, and we just think it's the wrong decision to make. When I had to tell our members, they were shocked. I expected, I expected there would be lots of questions, but they were all gobsmacked." Mr. Pizzala created a business plan, which he handed to the head office last month, in a bid to save the club from closure. The plan called for the club to remain open until December to allow time for it to take hold of its finances. When the plan was refused, Mr. Pizzala, who has chaired the club for 2 years, even offered to use his own money to pay off the club's debts. But the Royal British Legion refused to accept it. According to the Royal British Legion, the building is too large to be sustained by its current level of trade, and immediate payment of the outstanding debt is required. However, members are concerned the building will eventually be sold to developers. President and former chairman of the club, Derek Caton, 82, has been a member since it opened in 1971. The club was established in 1921 and was based in Cecil Road, Enfield, before moving to its current location. Mr. Caton, who spent 2.5 years in the RAF, said, "The atmosphere in the club is like one big family. They're taking the heart of the community away. The British Legion is looked upon from the whole of Enfield." The ex-serviceman, who lives in Perrymead, said the Royal British Legion should have given members more notice before breaking up an institution that has been running in the borough for so many years. A statement from the Royal British Legion said, "It's very sad that the Enfield Royal British Legion Club, 1937 Limited, will have to cease trading due to its financial difficulties."
Enfield is facing a health time bomb as new figures reveal the borough's 4- and 5-year-olds are the most obese in England. According to the National Obesity Observatory, in 2010-11, 1 in 7 reception-age children in the borough were classified as obese, 14.6% of all children who were measured. Only children from Hackney had obesity levels as bad as Enfield's in the whole of England. Caroline Ridler, a public health analyst who compiled the figures for New, said the problem needed to be nipped in the bud to prevent these children developing health problems in later life. Children who are obese at 4 or 5 are likely to be obese in later life when they run the risk of health problems such as diabetes and heart disease, she said. At a national level and at a local level, this should be tackled. The statistics were published last week along with health profiles of all local authorities, which saw 3,700 4- and 5-year-olds from Enfield have their weight and height measured to calculate their body mass index. Those with a BMI of 30 or over are classified as obese. Figures from the previous year reveal that 13% of reception-age children in Enfield were obese. The government has come under fire for allowing academies to opt out of national guidelines that ensure schools serve healthy meals. Education Secretary Michael Gove asked for a new report into healthy lunches to be compiled, but TV chef Jamie Oliver, who campaigned for the original guidelines, branded the move a waste of time and said it was delaying action on school dinners. Christine Hamilton, Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Public Health, said, "We're doing everything we can to improve the health of youngsters. I think in the last year you will see the figures will have improved. What Michael Gove is doing isn't good. It's one step forward and 2 steps back. Children at academy schools need healthy lunches just as much as children at other schools." Edmonton MP Andy Love said the figures were saddening and called on families to make healthy food choices and exercise more.
A man suffered burns to his arms and 200 people were evacuated when a fire broke out at the Sri Lankan Cricket Festival in Winchmore Hill on Sunday. The blaze, which started inside a marquee at Winchmore Hill Cricket Club's ground in Fords Grove, is thought to have started when the gas canister of a small cooker was being changed at about noon. The annual event, which attracts Sri Lankan teams from across the country, has been taking place for 30 years. Club Secretary Chris Langford told the Advertiser he was glad no one else was hurt in the blaze, which was brought under control by about 1:30 p.m. "There are lots of stores at the event selling Sri Lankan food and jewellery," said Mr. Langford. "The man cooking at one of the stores was going to change the gas container, and I think the gas wasn't turned off properly, and it caught fire, which quickly spread. The man doing the cooking had his arms burnt, and he was treated by paramedics who were stationed on site before being taken to hospital. The food store where the fire started was completely burnt out." Spectators and players were all asked to move at least 500 metres from the marquee, and parts of the crowd were dispersed into surrounding streets following concerns about other gas cylinders exploding. "No one was panicking at all. Everyone was doing what they were asked to do," added Mr. Langford. "The cricket hadn't started because of the rain, and we decided not to continue with it afterwards. I think there were some who were disappointed, but I think most people understood it was impossible."
Best friends have given up sugar for a fortnight to raise money for the Alzheimer's Society. Nancy Cannell and Ailsa's husband, both 9, wanted to find a unique way to say thank you to the charity, which supports Nancy's 76-year-old granddad and a friend of Ailsa's family. The Chaseside Primary School pupils, who will complete their mission on Thursday, July the 19th, have already totted up £240 for the charity, thanks to donations from friends and family. The girls' charity effort has touched the community, with a woman in a supermarket donating £1.50 to the cause when she overheard Nancy talking with her mum, Lucy, about the challenge. Nancy, who lives in Manor Road, said, "It was a bit tricky today because we had a party at school this afternoon and there was loads of marshmallows and popcorn. Next Thursday we're going to go to an ice cream parlour and then have a sleepover and eat lots of sweeties." She said she's missing ice cream the most, but it's easier because the 2 girls have been supporting each other through their challenge. Nancy's mother, Lucy, said, "The girls are being very good. It's that temptation of being able to go into the cupboard and help yourself to a biscuit and an ice cream that's hard." Nancy has had a few sugar slumps, but she's determined, so she will be able to do it. Ailsa, who is excited to drink fizzy drinks next week, said the pair are very proud of themselves for what they have achieved so far. Nancy came up with the idea that the pair should give up something to help the charity, and Ailsa suggested they should give up sugar because she knew it would be a challenge.
In the 1920s, Hilly Fields Park had to become the go-to place for Enfield residents to enjoy their leisure time. With the popularity of brass bands booming early in the decade, the council built the park's bandstand at a cost of £400. This is in Hilly Fields. Crowds of more than 5,000 were reported to have watched bands on certain occasions. The competition from cinema and radio meant the heady days of outdoor musical entertainment soon came to an end. By 1997, after decades of neglect, it was decided the structure should be demolished. That's where the Friends of Hilly Field stepped in, collecting more than 3,000 signatures in a petition to save it. Working tirelessly to raise funds, the group obtained a lottery grant of some £60,000 in 2000 and used the money to restore the bandstand to its former glory. It's a story of local resilience and community spirit that continues to this day. On July the 15th, music returns to the bandstand with the Soul Agents, who are putting on a free gig. There will be a collection for a local charity on the day. Playing a set of authentic 60s soul, the band are guaranteed to get you on your feet with music from the likes of Otis Redding, James Brown, Aretha Franklin and Sam and Dave. The Soul Agents are at Hilly Fields Park, Clay Hill, Enfield on July the 15th from 3 o'clock till 5:30 p.m.
The consultation period for the Salmons Brook Flood alleviation scheme has been extended for 3 more months, following a planning meeting on Monday evening. The scheme includes raising the bank of Salmons Brook, building an embankment and the boundary of Enfield Golf Club, on the boundary of Enfield Golf Club and Cheney Walk open space, both of which will be used as floodplains. The plans are aimed at reducing the risk of flooding in Edmonton and come after almost 200 homes in the area were flooded following heavy rain in 2000. Critics of the scheme say the golf course will face frequent flooding and some residents may have to move out while the work for the scheme takes place. But following a meeting attended by hundreds of people at Highland School in World's End Lane, residents are being given the chance to put their views to the council until the next planning meeting, expected to be in October. Residents from Winchmore Hill at the meeting said that the gardens and open spaces had been flooded by rain in recent months, while Edmonton residents had not been hit at all. Steve Whipp, Flood Risk Management Technical Specialist at the Environment Agency, said that preventing homes being flooded was his priority. We will take on board the concerns and comments of people, but I can't say at this stage whether we will change the plans, he said. There has been recent flooding in the gardens and open spaces of Winchmore Hill and Grange Park, but there has not been any flooding in people's homes, and that is our concern. The chance of flooding in people's homes in Edmonton is 1 in 20, whereas the chance of flooding in open spaces in Winchmore Hill is a lot higher. We would expect flooding in Winchmore Hill's open spaces before there is flooding in homes in Edmonton. If there is flooding in people's gardens, that is inconvenient for a day or two. But if people's homes are flooded, those people have faced huge bills and they may very well have to relocate.
Southgate Police Station could be sold to help fill a £233 million deficit in the police budget, admits the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. The London Mayor revealed during an assembly meeting this week that the station is one of 12 in the city which could, in principle, be sold to fix the funding gap. If the station is sold, 3 stations in the borough would remain open. Enfield Police Station, it says here Enfield Police Station again, I imagine that's Edmonton, and Winchmore Hill Police Station. 4 stations in Finchley, Sidcup, Kingsbury and East Dulwich already have full approval for sale from the Mayor. The Mayor was made Head of Priorities and Performance for the Metropolitan Police in January this year.
Visitors to Forty Hall were given guided tours by costume characters as the landmark reopened its doors on Sunday following a £4 million refurbishment. Mayor of Enfield, Councillor Kate Anulu, was on hand to formally reopen the 17th century manor house after a 1.5-year revamp to restore the building to its original designs. Morris and maypole dances, music performances and period games were among the activities. The surrounding park is also going through a £2 million renovation after winning a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund late last year, with work to reveal the ruins of the Tudor-era Elsinge Palace and the appointment of a conservation officer to teach visitors the history of the site, to turn the grounds into a major attraction. The refurbishment involves restoring the rooms to their original Jacobean alignments and bringing back their 17th century interiors. The house is now fully accessible thanks to a lift. The council wants to encourage young people to take up work placements, training and apprenticeships due to be offered at the Landmark.
Last week, the Advertiser investigated the problem of youth knife crime in the borough. It came in the wake of the convictions of the murderers of Leroy James and Stephen Grisales, both of whom were stabbed to death in Enfield last year. Although it is clear that there is no simple solution to stopping young people's dangerous attraction to crime and violence, one woman is doing everything in her power to break down gang culture. Hilly Thompson set up the Life Youth Resource Centre in the wake of a spate of gang-related murders in the borough in 2008. She is focused on turning young people away from the gang activity through intense one-to-one mentoring. According to the chief executive of the charity, it has made quite an impact on young people. She told the Advertiser, "We have young people who have turned away from gang life and gone back into college. We have worked with young people who were at one stage really low achievers in school, but one young man then went on to become a prefect." Talking to Hilary, the stark reality of working within gang culture becomes clear. "A lot of the young people we work with have friends who are still in gangs," she said. "We had a boy who was trying to get away from the gang, and someone still in his block in it took a dog around to his house and attacked him. The parents had to move out of the area practically overnight," she added, explaining that while in theory for a young person to turn their back on a life with gangs is quite simple, the reality is that they have to reject their street families. Despite the fact that within the last 2 months, 2 teenagers from Enfield have been convicted of the murders of other teens, Hilary is still optimistic about helping more young people in the future. "With all these young people, when we are in a one-to-one environment, you realise that they are really just children," she said. "There's always a root cause, and when we get to the root of what a child is behaving like and why that child is behaving like this, then we can really make a difference to their lives, their families' lives and their future."
Enfield Council is set to spend £30,000 on preventing lorries travelling down 3 residential roads. The Hilly scheme will see width restrictions in Browning Road, Morley Hill and Kilvington Drive. According to the council, the changes will prevent lorry drivers from being able to take shortcuts when travelling between busy roads like Clay Hill and Lavender Road. Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Environment, Councillor Chris Bond, said residents are understandably unhappy seeing massive lorries driving up and down narrow residential roads all day near young families and causing excessive noise and vibration. We've listened to residents' concerns and moved swiftly to address those concerns. The project is all about making sure large vehicles keep to appropriate roads rather than ducking down small side streets for the sake of saving a few minutes off journey times. Formal plans are expected to be decided in the autumn.
3 students missed out on a $100,000 prize despite winning an international aircraft competition. Middlesex University students Mehmet Ali Erbil, Mantas Brazantikos and Witold Malinsky were one of 9 teams to enter the US competition. However, despite totting up the highest amount of points, the students discovered all the teams had been disqualified because their mini-machines failed to meet the correct criteria. Mehmet from Enfield had spent 4 years working on the small unmanned air vehicle as part of his PhD. Despite his defeat, Mr. Erbil, who will finish his university course next year, said he wouldn't let the disappointment deter him from carrying on developing his machine. He said, "It's a shame, but it was never about the cash part. It was all about being the winner." Mr. Erbil plans to add lighter parts to make sure his aircraft, which cost £10,000 to build, continues improving.
A public process descended on last week's full council meeting in a vocal show of opposition to Sunday parking charges in Enfield town. The controversial parking fees, dubbed pay and display by one Tory councillor, were introduced by the council last January and have been met by fierce opposition from churches and businesses in the town. The Conservative group harnessed that anger and organised a rally at the meeting in the Civic Centre in Silver Street last Wednesday. The 30-strong group of protesters then watched from the public gallery as the Conservatives presented the council with a petition signed by 7,500 supporters urging Labour members to scrap the charges. After the leader of the Conservative opposition, Michael Lavender, told the meeting that the charges had caused a decline in footfall and in sales, he called on 3 representatives of businesses in Enfield town to make their case for scrapping the Sunday charges. Patricia Blair, chairwoman of Pals Gardens Traders Association, Erdel Mehmet, chairman of Enfield Town Business Association, and Chris Theodolou, owner of Emma Claire Hair and Beauty Spa in Church Street, urged that the everyday parking charges should be lowered for the first 4 hours. All car parks should be changed to pay on an exit, and the council should remove the unpopular Sunday parking charges immediately. Mrs. Blair told the meeting that traders in the shopping centre had seen a 12.4% drop in footfall since the charges were introduced at the start of the year. You can see the impact the introduction of Sunday parking charges has had on trade, she said. This is driving customers away from the town centre to out-of-town shopping centres with free parking, putting local businesses and the very future of our town at risk. In an impassioned speech, Mr. Theodolou told the meeting, "I love Enfield. I'm an Enfield man and I married an Enfield woman. I am passionate about where I live and where I work, and I'm in total support of scrapping the charges. We are desperately requesting that you listen to us. These are unprecedented times and we need unprecedented action." As exchanges between councillors grew increasingly heated, Chris Bond, Cabinet Member for the Environment, justified the parking charges decision and said, "The reason we brought it in is there was a report done to look at parking in Enfield. People were coming in and parking up all day, but not actually staying in Enfield. There was congestion in car parks and people would come to shop here but couldn't even park." However, Mr. Bond did try to reassure the protesters and said, "We want to review this. We will review it, and this is the first part of that review." When the vote was called on whether to scrap the fees, the entire Conservative group held up signs saying, "Sunday parking for free," with large P's printed on them, to which one backbench councillor replied, "This is taking the P." Oh dear.
Chemical experts are awaiting test results after taking samples at the scene of an attempted robbery outside a bank on Friday morning. Police were called at 9:49 a.m. to the NatWest branch in Hertford Road, Enfield Highway, to reports of an attempted robbery. 2 men who had parked outside the bank were about to deposit a sum of money when they were attacked. One of the men was punched to the ground and the other was sprayed in the face with an aerosol can. The man who was punched struggled back to his feet and was able to run into the bank and deposit the cash. Although police cannot confirm the substance in the can was acid, they said one of the victims suffered blistering to his hands and face and was taken to Chase Farm Hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield, by paramedics. The robber escaped without any cash.
This is a sports article about football. Enfield Town made a flying start to their preparations for the Ryman Premier Division season as they beat Wrexham 3-1 in the Supporters Direct Cup on Sunday. They were 3-0 up inside 7 minutes thanks to goals from Mark Kirby and Liam Hope, braced as they put their young Welsh visitors to the sword. Rob Stathiel pulled one back for the Dragons, but Town held on to claim the trophy, which was won by Chester Football Club last season. Stathiel netted for the Welsh side with a low drive on 25 minutes, but Town held out in a scrappy second half to claim victory. Town have been drawn to play Kings Langley, St Margaret's-Bury or Leighton Town in the first qualifying round of the FA Cup on September the 8th. Enfield 1893 have been handed a trip to Aylesbury United in the extra preliminary round of the competition on August the 11th.
We have now reached the end of side 1 of this tape, so please stop your machine now, take out the cassette and turn it over, ready to start side 2.